My name is Hannah, and this is my no-buy year. Right now I'm in the middle of filming my morning skincare routine. I'm at the point where I have demonstrated putting on all of the layers of my morning skincare, and now I'm going to throw on a little bit of makeup so that I can come back and film myself describing all of the layers of my skincare, what order I use them in, why I use them, etc. As of this upload, my morning skincare routine should have already been uploaded. It should have been my Sunday upload, my official Sunday upload. But I thought I might as well film myself putting on this makeup so that I can upload it later in the week as a bonus video. What I'm going to demonstrate for you is the super quick look that I've been putting onto my face almost every morning for the past week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. So far this month, I've been really into clear, glossy skin with no discernible base makeup on the skin. So again, this will be a no foundation makeup demonstration. And to go along with that, a bold but casual feeling red lip. That has been my vibe lately, and that is the look I'm going to apply right now. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. I'm going to prime with this little bottle of the Smashbox Photo Finish foundation primer. This was given to me recently by a friend who had a box of beauty products that she wasn't using. I've tried this in the past and I know that I like it, so I was happy to accept it. As you know, if you watched my empties video last week, I recently ran completely out of primer. I used up everything in that category, and so I was able to repurchase one bottle of primer, and I purchased my holy grail, the Urban Decay Optical Illusion Complexion Primer. It was after I had replaced that category that this came into my life as a gift, so now I have both of them. Even though this is my holy grail, I find myself reaching for this many mornings because it's a bit lighter. It's a bit lighter than this. This is just a really effective and wonderful, but quite a heavy-duty primer, especially if I've put on all of the layers of my morning skincare, which I don't do every time. Sometimes I go kind of light on my morning skincare. Sometimes I go all in. Today I've gone all in, so I already have a lot of layers of stuff on my face, and I'm finding that in that situation, I'm more inclined to reach for a slightly lighter primer. So that's been kind of interesting to find that out about myself. I previously thought that I would reach for this whenever I could in any situation because I love it so much, but today I'm using this one. So this is a very basic clear silicone primer. It was kind of like, I believe it was kind of like the original silicone primer. Smashbox was kind of first out the gate with the primer game. And I just put it basically where I'm gonna put any kind of base. So I'm not too worried about covering my whole face with it all the way down here. I'm just concentrating it here on the insides of my cheeks, under my eyes, and in the middle of my forehead, and then in my chin. So basically where I'm red, where I'm blotchy. And then I let that sit for a minute. I definitely want it to set down. This primer sets down, dries down pretty quickly, especially compared to some other primers that I've tried. But I always give silicone primers a minute before I start going in on top of them with anything. In my experience, no matter how well formulated it is, if a silicone primer doesn't have a moment to set, it can be prone to pilling if you go right over it with your fingers or a brush or any kind of other product. All right, that feels like it's set. It's totally weightless. It has become part of my skin and I can't feel it on my face anymore. It's dry. It's not sticky at all. It's nice. Color corrector. This is the Lancome Teint Idole Ultra Wear Camouflage, the green one. I use this every day unless it's a photo shoot day and I'm going in with a full mask of full coverage foundation. If I'm not doing that, I use this. So sorry, I don't know if you saw it, but I just used literally the tiniest drop and I'm rubbing it between my fingers so that it shears out. Now I press it into my skin where I'm red. The difference is subtle. You really can't see that there's anything on my skin at this point, but to me, it's tremendous. Before, I was a person with a really red face, especially in this lower area, and now my skin looks like it's evened out in tone. And to me, that makes an enormous difference. There are many mornings on which after I put this product on, I feel much less compelled to go in with a ton of concealer or any foundation or anything. And sometimes, especially if I have a super busy work day and I'm not going to be really seeing people or going out into the world that much, the color corrector is enough for me. Lately, however, I have been going in with the teeniest drop of Shape Tape. Just the absolute teeniest drop. And I've been shearing it out with a brush, which is something that I stopped doing for a really long time. I became a total beauty sponge person. This was the gift for making VIB Rouge last year. It's the Sephora Pro Mini Flawless Airbrush, and the number is 56.5. So that's the tiniest drop of Shape Tape that you can possibly even get. And I'm really using this brush to buff it into the skin as well as I can. And by the time that's done, I feel like it really doesn't look like I have makeup on there, but there's a difference between how that part of my face looks now and how it looked before. Before, it just looked a little bit shinier, a little bit more creased. That line that comes down under the eye was a little more prominent, and it was redder. The inner part of my cheeks were redder. Now, it's just brighter and smoother, but it doesn't look like makeup, and that's what I'm going for. So I'm gonna do the same thing on my chin. My chin is a little bit more textured and it tends to cake up quickly, even with a small amount of product. And I really don't like the look of caked product over the redness on my chin. So I'm always very careful to start with the smallest amount on my chin and then build it up if necessary, but a lot of times it's not necessary. A pinprick of concealer. I think that's all right. There's still a little bit of redness on the side of my mouth, but I'm not trying to make my skin a monolith of blank white color. I'm not trying to make my skin all one color, because that's not what faces look like. Faces are dimensional, skin is dimensional. I'm trying to make it a little bit less dramatically mottled, a little bit less uneven, but without going so far as to just blank out all of the dimension in my skin, because that would look unnatural and makeup-y, and then I would have to go on top of it with more makeup to shape and contour and bring life back to my skin. And I want to wear as little makeup as possible today, so I'm erring on the side of less, and that means that I have to be comfortable with some imperfections. So I'm not going to try to add more concealer to totally even out everything in my chin area. It would make my chin look like it was wearing a lot more makeup than the rest of my face, and I'm not into that. So I also often put the tiniest dot on my forehead and work that in. In a lot of ways, it's just to mattify. I feel like Shape Tape it's like really creamy, and it also provides kind of a satin to matte finish. And my forehead was starting to get a bit shiny, and so compared to the rest of my face, it wasn't red because I don't get redness up there, but it was just a little bit of a different texture. So I wanted to make the center of my forehead match the rest of here. But really, you saw I only put it right here in the center of my forehead. All of that product is concentrated towards the center of my face, brightening and kind of clarifying the center of the face. All of the skin as it goes towards the edges of my face is just bare, or rather has a little color corrector and a little bit of primer, but it's my skin. I'm gonna do a touch of spot concealing. I have a very visible blemish on my chin, which is my main target for this spot concealing. And then I've got some persistent redness under my nose on this side from a blemish that got infected ages and ages ago, and it's just taking a super long time to heal. So I have my NARS Soft Matte Creamy Concealer. I have totally lost the teeny tiny brush that I use as a concealer brush. I think it might be at my workspace downtown. I'm just using this little ColourPop brush. It's much, much bigger and flatter. I mean, you know, it's an eyeshadow brush. It's not at all like the one that I usually like to use for this, but it'll do. I'm taking the teeniest bit on this brush and even kind of wiping it off so there's really not a lot. Again, I'm being very careful with this product because it's a thicker and more matte concealer than Shape Tape, so it can very quickly become super prominent on the skin if I don't go easy. So I use my finger, the warmth of my finger helps to shear it out and spread it out, and I constantly resist the temptation to keep adding more and more. As I do this, I'm constantly reining myself in from going after the wild desire for perfection. I'm constantly having to remind myself that covering everything and blanking out everything is actually not the look that I want. And that helps me to keep from just piling more and more product on. Because when I'm focused on one little spot on the face and I don't see the whole picture, I can easily go overboard and just keep adding more and more and trying to make it more and more erased. But I've learned from experience not to do that because, again, that just leads to having to add more and more product in other parts of the face, and I don't want to go there. So this blemish on my chin, I don't know how well you can see it, but in real life it's still very three-dimensional. It's still prominent. So my main concern has been to make it look less red. So I just put a little bit of concealer on there and pressed it in around that area to make it look less red, but I'm not going to be concerned with doing everything in my power to erase that blemish from the sight of people who might be looking at me. It's there, it's fine. I'm just glad that it's a little bit less red now, so it's a little bit less noticeable, and that's gonna be fine for today. I recently dyed my eyebrows and I filmed it. It was maybe not quite a week ago today, but this is what they look like when the dye has worn off of my skin. So the skin behind my hairs is no longer tinted, but the hairs themselves are still a nice, rich, cool-toned brown. All I need today is gel, brow gel. As the gel dries, it's kind of like a race between how fast the gel can dry and how fast my eyebrows can fall back into their weird, sad, droopy position. So I try to keep an eye on them because what's happening right now is that the gel is drying and holding them in place, and at the same time my eyebrows are trying to look bad again. So I sometimes wait a couple minutes and then brush them up with a dry brush. It's hard to get them to behave. I mean, I guess they're behaving in some way. They're behaving in the way that's natural to them, but I want them to behave like hedgehogs. Okay, the fun part, highlighter. This is yet another product that my friend allowed me to pick out of her box of products that she wasn't using. I found it in the box. It was a totally brand new and untouched mini of the Tarte highlighter in Exposed. And I almost didn't take it because it looks so gold. And I've said before on this channel that I'm not really the biggest fan of gold highlighters. So it's so pretty. It's actually more of a champagne, and sometimes I struggle with figuring out like what's gold and what's champagne, and if a champagne color is too golden, it'll look dark on me, even though it's technically champagne. This is kind of right on the line. It's a bit golden of a champagne, and I think if I layered it too much, it would look kind of dark on me, but I also might be a tiny bit darker than usual because it's the middle of the summer and I'm in the sun a lot. I'm assiduous about my use of sunscreen, so I haven't really gotten a burn or a tan. But I think in spite of our best efforts, for many of us, our skin does darken a little bit in the summertime, and I think that's probably happened to me. So it might be that that's part of why this is working better on me than it would at another time of year. I decided to take it just because why not? I thought I would get to know it a little, maybe be able to review it for you, and I've ended up liking it way, way more than I expected to. I even like the champagne-y sheen, especially for the summer, and it's got some glitter in it, which I know a lot of people don't like in highlighters. I wouldn't like to have glitter in all of my highlighters. I appreciate the ones that don't, but I also appreciate the ones that do. And I've been reaching for it a lot since my friend generously gave it to me. So I'm using the Anastasia A23, my favorite highlighting brush, and I'm really gonna buff this into the skin. That is also one thing that helps the glitter be less glittery. It's a pretty powdery highlight. I do find I have to tap the brush off a lot or it will be cakey on the first application. I'm gonna draw it a little bit up onto my lid. But at this point, the brush is pretty much dry, so I'm not really applying it to my lid. I'm just drawing it up a tiny bit. I'm gonna take it down my nose. This is really like an all highlight look, so I don't hold back. I often use my finger here to press it in and make sure it kind of melts into any product that's on my upper lip. Otherwise it can end up looking kind of grainy with highlight there. And then I've been really hitting my chin lately. That's kind of a lot. So after I go wild with the highlighter, I go back with this brush, the one I used for Shape Tape. It's dry, there's nothing on it except for any remnants of that. And I buff back over the areas where I put that just to make sure that there's not a harsh line between where the highlighter is and where the highlighter is not. Also, sometimes the highlighter drifts in a little bit closer to my nose than I wanted, and this kind of helps calm it down. I will often also buff the chin a little bit because it gets like, I put too much highlighter on there, it was too shiny. So this is not taking away the highlighter, it's not erasing it. It's just like helping to buff it even more into the product underneath, and it makes it more a part of my skin, more glowy. All right, pretty happy with that. I'm gonna put my mole back on, just using this little eyeliner. My mole actually is flesh colored. It's not like it's a brown mole that I covered up with products. It's actually a flesh-colored mole. But when it's all covered up with product, it's a bit three-dimensional and it looks so much like a blemish that I always put a little bit of brown product on top of it to make it clear that it is meant to be there. Then I will often take my highlighting brush and just kind of over top of it so that it blends in with the face and it doesn't look like I stuck it on top of product. It makes the mold look more natural, and it also makes the highlighter look more natural to make sure that they're blended in. For the past week or so on my eyes, I have been using only mascara. And if I really feel like I have the time, I will tightline my upper lash line, but most days I've been skipping that step, and I'm gonna skip it today. So this is Lash Paradise. I spend a good amount of time on the mascara for this look. This mascara is really starting to dry out. It's kind of getting towards the end of its life. But what I often do is I get as much as I can onto the brush, and then I'll start only at the base of the lashes. So I go in and I just try to work it into the base of the lashes, and I actually try to keep the brush from sweeping through the tips. I don't want the tips to get any product on them yet, or much product on them. I want them to stay clear of product because I want them to not get too gunky, because that can cause them to stick together and be more spidery. I want them to stay fluffy. I'm essentially trying to gunk up my lashes close to my lash line, but not get any product or not get very much product on the tips of the lashes. So I'm sort of like pressing it in, pressing and rolling the brush close to the lash line. So now they're pretty fluffy and dark close to my lash line, and I think that that has helped to create a good bit of volume in my lashes, that technique. So now I'm going to go through and sweep a couple of layers through the tips of my lashes to lengthen. I'm also sort of using the tip of the brush to separate any clumps. There we go. So they're pretty fluffy. They're not super long. This isn't the most lengthening mascara in the world, but they're there. They're there. And I think I'm gonna skip, no, I'm gonna do a little bit on my lower lashes today. And all that remains is to put on a lipstick, which is actually the focus of this look. To me, the most fun part of this look is the super highlighted skin, but the focus is obviously the red lip. I have a little bit of lip balm on, so I'm going to remove that. I'm just making sure that I didn't remove all the highlighter when I removed that. And for my lip color today, I've chosen this. It's the NARS Velvet Lip Glide in the color La Palace. And it is a little deluxe sample size. I believe I got it as a point perk or something. I really, really love the color and the finish of this, but I have been essentially cycling through all of my red lip colors with this look. For the past week or 2 weeks, I've been doing a version of this look every day, and then I will reach for a different red lip every day. So I've been getting a lot of use out of my collection of red lipsticks, which is really exciting, and it's fun to see how the look changes slightly with the different versions of red, the different formulas, the different colors. And then I have been switching up the highlighter from time to time too. I would say that Tarte Exposed is the highlighter I've reached for the most frequently over the past week or 2 weeks of doing this look, but I've been using my Fenty highlighter, I've been using some of my NARS highlighters. I have done this with a cream highlight once or twice and actually didn't like it quite as much. I feel like for this like really, really highlighted look, a powder is better because you can kind of go absolutely crazy all over your face with it. And at least for me, that's part of the excitement of this look. So that's what I've been doing. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and apply this lip color. This is a creamy vanilla scented product. It applies with a satin finish, and then it does become a little bit more matte the longer you wear it. I've applied it and then blotted it to soften the edges, and then applied a little bit more towards the center of my lips. And it's not a liquid lipstick, so it doesn't dry down completely. It's not transfer proof, but it's very rich, it's very comfortable, and it is pretty tenacious. I'm always pleasantly surprised by how long it lasts and how well it lasts and how well it wears. I really like this formula, and I actually really like this color. This is a recent rediscovered favorite from my collection for sure. So that is it. This is how I have looked almost every day for the past 2 weeks, with the exceptions of the times that I have sat down to film and I've put on a bit richer of an eye look or a bit more defining of an eye look. Because I was talking with you and explaining everything as I went through the process of applying all of these products, filming this video definitely took 3 or 4 times longer than applying this look usually takes. When it's just me in the mornings and I'm zipping through every stage of this process, I can usually get this look on in about 5 minutes. It's a super speedy, but still quite put together and quite effective look. And the red lip always helps me feel like I'm taking on the day with a bit of style and panache. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll remember to take extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.